wanted the train. She was clutching her little purse and she was still looking at the countryside as it rolled by, sitting on a train, not really sure how the Lord was going to do it. But as she sat on the train, she got a little uneasy, but she prayed again and said, Lord, you brought me this far.
Come on now.
And I'm trusting you to get me home.
All right. Come on
You
now.
got me this far.
Come on now.
I'm trusting you for the rest.
Yeah.
The woman, after she said this short prayer, about that time the conductor came walking up the train and snapping the tickets to validate tickets. And when the conductor arrives to the woman, she handed over her ticket. And the conductor looked at her as he examined the ticket, and he said to her real kindly, he said, ma'am, this ticket only gets you half the way.
All right. Come on now.
This ticket is not enough to get you all the way home.
All right.
The woman looked at the conductor and said, oh yes, conductor, I know. But I'm trusting God to get me the rest of the way home.
Come on now.
The conductor smiled and stamped her ticket and walked down the aisle. About that time, her passenger, her fellow passenger that was sitting behind her, leaned up and tapped her on the shoulder and said, ma'am? She said, yes. He said, I couldn't help but overhear your dilemma. I couldn't help but overhear that you were only going to make it half the way home. And I heard what you said to the conductor, that you were trusting God to make it the rest of the way home. And when you said that, I thought about how good God has been to me. And how he helped me when I didn't have enough to make it home. And I thought about how good God has been to me. And if you don't mind, I want to give you this ticket. And it's going to get you the rest of the way home. I feel God in this room. There is a statement about faith that we as believers need to trust God more than we trust ourselves. Because what I got is not enough. But isn't it interesting that she trusted God for the rest? Look at your neighbor and say, I feel God here. Yeah, she trusted God for the rest. What she did was she took what she did have, which was not enough, and put it in the hands of he who had more than more than enough. You ain't talking to me in here. The text tells me that the cattle on thousands of hills belong to him. The text said that the earth is the Lord's, the fullness thereof, the world, and they that dwell therein. If I gotta get home, I'm like the one, I'm trusting God to get me the rest of the way home. I tell you, this text tonight, we find a leper that has made his way to Jesus. Now this man is going to have to exercise some mountain moving faith here. This man has got to have faith that God will get him the rest of the way home. That God will overturn his paralysis, his leprosy. Leprosy was in that day an incurable disease. Leprosy affected the body in such a way that it could make it difficult to even scream or to call the name. Hence the parable of the 10 lepers. They had to scream and lift their voices together so Christ could hear them. But here's the thing. Isn't it interesting? Because according to the Deuteronomical law, the leper But this leper has made his way to Jesus. Isn't that a good place to be? He made his way to Jesus. He gets to Jesus. Now, there's no reason that this man is supposed to be this close to Jesus. There's no reason, because the law said he shouldn't be this close. But his faith said, if I can get to Jesus, I'm going to make my request known unto him. I just got to get to Jesus. Text says here that he made his way to Jesus. And in the words of the leper, we don't hear doubt, we hear faith. Listen what he said in verse 40, chapter 1 of St. Mark's record. He said, and there came a leper to him, beseeching him, and kneeling down to him, that's worship, and saying unto him, if thou will, you can make me clean. He didn't say that you couldn't do it. His statement says, I know you can do it. But if you will, I know you can get me home. I know you can make me clean. Come on, help me preach. I gotta go. I know you can make me clean. And says this to Jesus. Now notice, this man is close enough to Jesus that there's a risk of him passing the disease on to others. So he meets Jesus somewhat isolated and says, I know that thou can make me clean. Now look at Jesus. Look at what he does. Look at what Jesus does. He looks and he responds to the man. The good thing in verse 41 says that Jesus is moved with compassion. Jesus is moved. Jesus always responds to faith. I feel God in this room. He always responds to faith. Whether you got it or whether you don't. And we are going to be revived. We got to unleash some mountain moving faith in our lives. Is our faith enough to get over the hump? Do we have a grain of mustard seed worth? Our challenge ain't that we don't have faith, we don't got enough. We're not planting the seed of faith anywhere. This man plants a seed and says to Christ, if you will, I know you can. The Bible says that Jesus is moved with compassion. Jesus looks at the man and Jesus says, I will. Be thou clean. Now listen and look. The text here in verse 41 says that he was moved and he says he will and he commands the man to be cleansed. But verse 42 shows us something. Verse 42 says, as soon as Jesus had spoken, the leprosy said, wow, time to pack our bags. The leprosy said, well, it's been a good ride. The leprosy said, time to go. For the Christ has commanded that this man be made clean. I love the fact that the man did not just ask to be healed. He asked him to be made clean. Anybody ever washed dishes? Anybody ever been made by your mother or your father to stand on a bucket at a sink? What y'all laughing for? At a sink, washing dishes. And there was a time, so there was this time that my mother must have been watching me wash dishes. And see, I believe that my mom retired from washing dishes when we got of age, you see.
All right.
So by this time, I'm a bit of an experienced dishwasher. My mother hasn't washed dishes in probably a generation. And so I was washing dishes. And I washed the outside of the cup. I washed the inside of the cup, the bottom of the cup. Everything was looking good, kind of glistening. And I went to go to my rinse cycle, and my mother says, "Reggie, stop." And I went, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "That glass is not clean." And I'm like, Mom, wait a minute, come on now. When the last time you?
All right, man. Come on now.
You all wash the dishes, And my mother says, "I watched you as you washed the cup. And everything looked good. But what you didn't do was wash the rim of the glass."
Come on now.
She said, "And while it seems to be a small thing, son, you got to understand that all of the impurities and all the germs that were left behind by the previous user are left on the rim. You got to wash to let the cup look clean."
All right, man. Come on now.
But it wasn't clean. I got to go. So Jesus is not addressing the man's external problems alone.
Come on now.
Nor did the man ask for external cleansing.
Come on now.
The man said, "If you will, I know you can make me clean." He didn't say, "I know you can heal me." He said, "I know you can make me clean." Jesus apparently is moved by the request. And this man is so close to Jesus that Jesus' response was not all that happened. The text here tells us that as soon as he had spoken it, the leprosy said, "We got to go," and departed from the man and cleansed. But Jesus had reached his hand toward the man.
All right.
To bring him back in fellowship with the family.
All right.
He'd been disconnected from the community. The man had been dirty. The man had leprosy. But the man exercised some mountain moving faith. Well, it's time to go. But he exercised mountain moving faith. What does it mean to we who are believers today? If he did it before,
Come on now.
he can do it again. If God helped somebody else before,
Come on now.
I know he's got the same power to get me home. I know he got the same authority
Come on now.
to cleanse me.
Yeah.
We gotta go. We gotta go. The Bible said that this man came to Christ. That Christ not only healed the man, but Christ cleansed the man and brought him back into fellowship with him. I think you're still missing the story. See, Jesus was close enough to the man's problem. Can I tell us that sometimes we feel like we're so far from God? But just a little talk with Jesus, where we tell him all of our troubles. He can hear our faintest cry. And he'll answer by and by. The songwriter said, "Do you feel a little prayer will turn it?" And you know a little fire is burning because you had a little talk with the man. I got to go. Thank you for having me tonight. But there is a time to leave. The word says that Jesus apparently is not afraid of the man's leprosy. For Jesus could have told the man, "You're not following the law." But Jesus is never afraid of our problems. Jesus is expecting us to do as this man did and unleash some mountain moving faith. And as we are believers in the house of God, as we are believers not just in this place, but when we leave these doors, when we walk out of this place, we ought to shine a light in a dying world and tell the world that yes, our Savior lives, that yes, our Savior still has power, that I called on His name when I was in trouble. I was able to unleash some mountain moving faith. And when I unleashed the faith, the Lord heard my cry. The Lord answered my call. The Lord moved on my behalf. The Lord moved with compassion. I said, I will be thou clean. I will. It's all over now. I will. You're in a better state. I will make a way out of no way. God said, He's not power. Come out of God. The authority of God never be underestimated. The authority of God is the kind of thing that overturn our prayers. And we yes, He will. If there's any believer that knows the goodness of God, you are